So I've talked about lies regarding VR and things boomers say about VR, but I think it's time we take the boss fight. VR has honestly been under attack by mainstream news outlets across the world since practically its inception. Of course, there have been plenty of these types of articles over the years by excited journalists that look at VR optimistically. But on the flip side, there have been enough misinformed, downright false claims and perspectives from sources that many claim to be legit and professional news outlets. So I'm calling it. This is war. And we fight this war with information. So let's get some things straight. Because instead of asking what went wrong with VR, we should really be asking what went wrong with your journalistic integrity. I'm Thrill, and this is what the mainstream just doesn't get about virtual reality. So right off the bat, I'm going to say that the VR industry doesn't exactly make coverage easy on itself. Until recently, big software releases that do well have been pretty far and few in between. Headsets were prohibitively expensive and required setting up sensors and dedicating entire play spaces that certainly turned some people off. Also, hardware has been advancing quickly. VR in 2020 or even mid-2019 looks very different from hardware in 2016. But everything has changed. We've had an incredible year of software with even more coming soon. A completely new wave of headsets has upset the old notion that VR is prohibitively expensive, and either the older system of setting up trackers for a specified play space has been refined or done away with entirely with inside-out tracking. That actually works pretty darn well. All I ask from the biggest, most influential news outlets is for them to do their due diligence and stop spewing out garbage and false claims. So let's start with this one. Posted January 10th, 2020, BBC by Eleanor Lowry. What went wrong with virtual reality? This article takes generalization to the extreme. Based off of one person's experience with the VR arcade and their takeaway, the article's author assumes that everyone's outlook and resolve is the same. I wouldn't invest in buying virtual reality applications for home, she explains. It's fine to play more of a basic game when you're playing with other people, and because it's brand new, there are more layers of excitement. But when you're playing on your own, you want the quality that you're used to. As a keen gamer, Anna should be part of the core audience for at-home VR entertainment, but her lack of interest is pretty common, and it means that virtual reality headsets have yet to take off. So some people may not be complete fans of VR. I get it. Maybe it's the setup of a play space, or not owning a PC, or you just don't like having a headset on your face for a while. But instead of a valid reason, we get some vague explanation like, when you're on your own, you want the quality you are used to? It might just be me, but I fail to understand what Anna means here. What is pretty clear is that a statement is being made off of total inexperience or knowledge of what quality of games are available. In fact, I'm willing to bet that this person has no knowledge that Asgard's Wrath or Stormland or Boneworks even exist. But as a keen gamer, Anna should know all of this, shouldn't she? Her lack of interest is pretty common, and it means that virtual reality headsets have yet to take off. Definitely. I always base my public perception of an entire industry off of one keen gamer's statement. Let's move on. Many big-name adopters have abandoned their VR projects. Google recently halted sales of Daydream, its VR headset, admitting that there just hasn't been the broad consumer or developer adoption that we had hoped. Yes, it has. In fact, almost all phone VR is no longer supported. Phone-powered VR honestly sucks, and it's extremely outdated. It's also a very limited version of VR that barely shows the current potential of VR that's available right now on store shelves, or at least it would be on store shelves if headsets weren't sold out as is. But you would know all of this if you had done even a smidgen of research regarding the Daydream, now wouldn't you? But wait, the BBC already knew this information from previous articles. But over time, we noticed some clear limitations, constraining smartphone VR from being a viable long-term solution. Most notably, asking people to put their phones in a headset and lose access to the apps they use throughout the day causes immense friction, was said in a statement. So what's the big deal? I'm starting to see less of a trend of purposeful misinformation and more of an incompetence of the writers and fact-checkers. I'm not sure which is worse, but both are bad. Meanwhile, the BBC has announced it is ending the funding for its VR hub, less than 2 years after it was founded. Oh, now things are starting to make sense. A BBC article mentioning how VR has failed when a BBC VR project failed, using anecdotal evidence to report on the state of an industry. Nice journalism. VR received very little attention at CES, the annual trade show for consumer electronics, which was underway this week. Now, here is where the article really shows its ugly side. VR received very little attention at CES? Are you sure about that, BBC? From a VentureBeat article, CES 2020 proved the anti-VR and anti-AR crowds wrong. Profoundly wrong, in my view. Not only was AR and VR proudly displayed alongside the gaming sections of CES, rather than having its usual pit stop in the corner, but a slew of companies showed off their new devices. Let's just have a look at some of them. Pico Neo 2 and Pico Neo 2i, a new standalone VR headset boasting better specs and eye tracking than the current standalone leader, all for a pretty respectable price, to be honest. Panasonic's new VR glasses that even had Palmer Luckey giddy. The first affordable haptic suits ever, coming from bHaptic for under $500. Pimax showing off the new 5K headsets with 180Hz refresh rates, as well as the first direct Valve Index competitor, the Vision Artisan, or Virgineers, VRgineers, and their 8K XTAL that's being looked at for massive United States Air Force contracts at the moment, or the number of VR gloves that were shown off. Yeah, VR received very little attention this CES, but I guess it must be hard to judge from your window in London. Once again, moving on. However, one space in which virtual reality is thriving is group entertainment. By its nature, VR offers a gateway to a shared world, and in a group setting, everyone gets charged from $20 rather than shelling out hundreds for a headset. East London VR Arcade Otherworld launched last year. It already sees 1,000 visitors a week through its doors, 60% of whom are female and half aged 25 to 34. So VR arcades bring in a diverse, enthusiastic crowd week after week, and this is somehow a problem where VR has gone wrong? A developer for one of these arcade experiences from Hammerhead VR even states that while VR didn't meet some of the expectations that were set a few years ago for the expected growth rate, it's still a medium like no other and allows you to experience media in ways that were previously impossible. And things have certainly improved. Whether it's home gameplay, retail, virtual entertainment, a lot of the technology barriers have been removed. Yet BBC still has this to say. Might seem disappointing considering the huge hype around VR. With still just a handful of successful devices around, a major issue is that the price of the headsets has remained very expensive. And what about the Quest, though? Or WMR? Mass adoption remains impeded by the hardware required to run it, in my opinion. Take video games. You need a very powerful PC, a good amount of space, sensors set up around it, and of course the VR helmet itself. The cost runs to thousands, and for most it is completely impractical, not to mention too expensive. I'll say it again, what about the Quest? And even if you just want a PC VR headset, the Rift S, Vive, and CV1 don't require massively powerful PCs to run them. You can easily get into a full PC VR headset and a PC for just over $1,000, and that's including a decent PC that you could use for literally anything other than VR. Also, sensors can be complete things of the past if you choose to do so, with both Rift S and Quest or any WMR headsets. I guess your $1,000 iPhone you use to check your email is perfectly practical, or $5 a day coffees make sense. But a $400 standalone VR console like we've never seen before is totally overpriced and impractical. Then again, the term VR helmets was used, so most of the opinions related to virtual reality and the industry I see made here are from someone that are clearly not in the loop. The article then goes on to mention how great VR has been for rehabilitation, the automotive industry, patients with dementia, and how it offers a new way to safely train people in jobs with hazardous working conditions. So remind me, where has VR gone wrong? Look, my point here isn't to bash on Eleanor or the BBC. It's to bash on their lack of regard for the VR industry and the thousands that are working tirelessly within it. Virtual reality is nowhere near mainstream mass adoption like the smartphone or home PC. We are all aware of that, and that's perfectly fine. However, to make an article and completely disregard the current state of software sales, commercial adoption, and hardware sales, all while using anecdotal evidence with a sample size of literally one person to state why VR has failed, it's inexcusable. We have a long way to go, and it's going to require the hard work of everyone that is passionate about VR moving forward to maintain this momentum as well as continue to grow at an exponential pace. But let's be real here, this commercially viable VR train started just a little more than 3 years ago. Less time than a typical console generation, and to look at where we are now, you gotta stand back and feel a little proud. This VR family has grown considerably, and it will continue to do so. So, Eleanor and the BBC, I hope that the next time we cross paths regarding an article about VR on your website, that you do your research, because you could be damn sure that I've done mine. There's actually this sweet series on YouTube called Tuesday Newsday. Maybe you should check it out to stay in the loop regarding everything going on in the VR space. Could do you some good. I've been called quite the keen gamer myself, and I will gladly say that I am part of the core audience for at-home VR entertainment. Much love, Thrill out.